They believed we were dust beneath their boots. They forgot that dust remembers how to burn. Ava Roslin stared through the cracked viewport of Helix Station, where Earth's broken bones drifted like ghosts in the dark. Beyond the smudged glass, a dying planet hung low on the horizon, once blue, now a graveyard of storms and poisoned oceans, wrapped in orbiting husks of old war machines and dead satellites. Helix was humanity's last outpost this side of the Dominion's chokehold, a rusty lattice of tunnels and reactors clinging to the crust of a world no one called home anymore. Generations had been born here, beneath flickering lights and steel ceilings that groaned when the sun's rage battered the atmosphere above. Ava pressed her gloved palm to the cold glass. She wondered if her mother would recognize Earth now, if she'd stand here, chin lifted, and see hope instead of ruin. But her mother was long gone, buried in one of the deep maintenance shafts where the air recyclers still hissed lullabies for the dead. A soft chime crackled in her earpiece. Idris Harlan's voice, old, iron-boned, stitched to the station's heartbeat like an unwilling priest. Lieutenant Roslin, you're needed in the core. She turned away from the viewport. One last glimpse of the poisoned planet below, a promise or a warning, depending on who you asked. Ava preferred the promise that someday, the Dominions' boots would grind down on Helix and find more than dust underfoot. She slipped through the narrow corridor, helmet clipped to her hip, boots echoing on rusted gratings. Every wall she passed was scored with old bullet holes and scavenged welds. Relics from the first time the Dominion tried to silence Helix. They'd failed then. They'd fail again. In the core, Idris hunched over an ancient relay rig, cables snaking around his legs like mechanical roots. His left eye flickered with ghost light, spliced centuries ago to read dying code that no Dominion cipher could scrub clean. Status? Ava asked, her breath turning to mist in the cold air. Idris didn't look up. Power's draining faster than we can patch. Dominion drones are scanning the outer tunnels. We're ghosts to them, but that won't last. Ava crouched, fingers brushing over the battered uplink module bolted to the relay's side. She felt it hum under her touch, the last whisper of the Soul Archive, a relic buried under Helix before Earth's final night. Dominion Command thought it was scrap, old code, myth, but deep in its frozen veins ran humanity's last teeth. You said it's waking, she said. Idris gave a tight nod. Something stirring. Calls itself by old Earth protocols. We're missing keys to crack it wide. Ava's jaw clenched. She remembered her mother's stories of the archive. A promise forged. When humanity's skies turned black, orbital lances, kinetic hammers, fail-safes waiting for the next uprising, all locked behind DNA strands and command codes long since buried with their owners. Outside, the floor thrummed with a deep, mechanical growl. Ava knew that sound. Dominion dropships, sweeping low to sniff out heat trails. Her pulse quickened. Once they landed, Helix would be nothing but slag. Boss, has the tunnels locked? She asked. Locked in mine. By us minutes, not hours. Idris tapped a flickering data screen, eyes squinting at a line of scrolling glyphs. If the archive gives us what I think it has left, minutes might be enough. Ava straightened, gaze drifting to the ceiling where cables trembled like veins under stone. Somewhere above, the Dominion's eyes scraped the surface, searching for the last spark the Empire couldn't snuff out. That we hold, she said, voice soft but flint hard. We hold until we wake the ghosts. Her calm pinged. Boss's voice, clipped and calm. Lieutenant, contact confirmed. Dominion ground team breaching south tunnels. Ava drew her rifle from the magnetic clamp on her back. Old, battered, but hers. The stock still carried a faded engraving. Let them come. She flicked the safety off, felt the familiar weight settle against her shoulder. She looked at Idris, his single living eye burning with the same unspoken truth. We may die here, but they will bleed first. Outside the core's iron doors, the station lights flickered, a dying heartbeat echoing through tunnels to narrow for retreat. And somewhere deep under their boots, the Soul Archive pulsed once, a faint, ancient reply, promising that dust remembers fire. Asterisk. Ava's boots slammed against the ancient stone floor as she dragged Ren behind her, Idris limping in their wake. The Dominion's alarm pulses turned the tunnels into a strobe of crimson dread. The deeper they fled, the louder the vault door's grind echoed behind them like the planet itself was waking from a long, furious sleep. They ducked into a collapsed junction, hidden behind crumpled ferrocrete and ancient cables thick with dust. Ava pressed her back against the wall, eyes fixed on the dark passage they'd come through. She forced herself to breathe evenly, Though her heart rattled like a drum, Idris wheezed beside her, clutching his side where old Graf's spark blew under torn fabric. Ren's pale face glistened with sweat, eyes darting to Ava for an answer she didn't yet have. She swallowed her fear. You're the last officer. They'll stand as long as you do. Status, she whispered, voice sharp but steady. Ren struggled to keep his voice from shaking. The overseers have full breach teams, moving in, heavy drones. If they get control of that mine, Ava raised a hand, silencing him. She leaned closer to Idris, who was trying to bring up a static choke schematic on his battered wrist pad. Tell me what you know. Now, Idris exhaled, steam curling from the corner of his male jaw hinge. It's called Soul Archive. Pre-fall. Tech. Rumors said it held every piece of our lost knowledge sciences, weapons, even our old genetic seeds. But that's a fairy tale, Lieutenant. Nobody's seen proof in a century. Ava glanced at the tunnel walls layers of forgotten civilization, suffocated by Dominion machines. If this is real, and the Dominion, she asked, they thought we were savages, Idris rasped, coughing. They were sure Earth's last vaults were picked clean. But if they get Soul Archive online, they own everything we were, Ren finished grimly, and everything we could be. Ava clenched her jaw. She remembered her mother's broken voice. They can break our bodies, but they can't hold our ghosts. But what if they could? What if the Dominion could rewrite history, erase the very memory of what it meant to be human? She pushed off the wall, knuckles wide around her rifle grip. No, Ren blinked. Lieutenant, they don't get Soul Archive. Not today. Not ever. Before he could answer, static hissed in her earpiece an old frequency. Helix's battered comm network still clung to life. Its signals like stubborn veins under rotting skin. Ava tapped her comm. Rosalind. Talk. A hoarse voice crackled through. Command, this is Voss. We CM, ma'am, for overseer teams. 5 drones each, all moving deeper with portable server cores. Mila Voss, one of Ava's oldest friends left alive. A sniper who never missed. Who'd once covered Ava through a month-long siege in the ruins of Cairo Knoll. If Voss was calling in, it meant the hidden cell in Helix's underbelly had rallied. How many do you have? Ava asked. 24, mostly civvies with blades and old coil rifles. But we're ready. Ava's mind raced. The overseers would expect resistance. They would push forward no matter how many humans they crushed underfoot. The only advantage left was surprise and the vault's own mind. Voss, listen, they cracked Soul Archive's door, but they don't own it yet. I need a hit and run bleed them. Buy me time. Understood, Voss replied instantly, like it was the simplest thing in the world to stand against walking nightmares, with sharpened scrap metal and ancient rifles. That was what Ava loved about her. No hesitation, no false hope, just fight. Idris shifted painfully. Lieutenant, if we're striking, we'll need control of the inner conduits. They'll lock us out from the upper relays. Then we ghost through lower maintenance, Ava said, eyes darting to Ren. Ren, you know those tunnels better than anyone. You're on point. Ren's throat bobbed. He hesitated for a heartbeat, just a heartbeat, then nodded. Yes, ma'am. Ava crouched lower, pulling her squad tight under the broken archway. She spoke softly, but every word cut clear through the rattle of distant Dominion machines. Listen to me. This isn't just about us 3, or Voss's team, or Helix. It's about every ghost this rock still holds. If they rewrite the archive, we're not just dead, we're forgotten. Extinct in spirit, not just flesh. Idris drew a breath that rattled like loose screws. Then we hold the line with memories and blood. Ava's lip twitched something like a smile, but too sharp, too tired. Damn right. Far down the corridor, the Dominion's armored footfalls echoed steady, unhurried, confident in their power. In the distance, Ava heard Voss's people opening fire-crude coil bolts sparking against sleek alien plating. A scream, a roar, then silence swallowed it all. She met Ren's wide, fearful eyes and Idris's grim, battered stare. Humanity. That was all it was, flesh and bone and resolve that refused to lie down. Stay low, Ava murmured. We move when they're blind. Somewhere deep below, the Soul Archive pulsed in the dark whispers of old Earth code flickering through data veins. Long thought dead, as the overseers pressed deeper. Ava felt it like a heartbeat under her boots. She wondered if it was waiting for her. Ava's breath frosted the stale air as she crept through the old service shaft, boots clanging softly on corroded rungs. Rain climbed just ahead of her. every muscle taut as he listened for Dominion patrols above. Below, Idris wheezed curses at his aching joints, but kept pace. Every vibration from the drills overhead reminded Eva what waited if they failed. The soul archive alive, ancient. The last soul of a murdered Earth would become another Dominion trophy, dissected and repurposed to fuel the Empire's next genocide. Not today. Not while a heartbeat still pulsed in her chest. At the top of the shaft, Ren froze. He raised his fist a signal. Eva pressed close, rifle steady, through a cracked maintenance grate. They saw a Dominion relay station, 3 overseers hunched over portable servers, shadows of drones drifting like steel insects through the stale air. Eva locked eyes with Ren. Silent breach, she mouthed. Ren pulled a slim blade from his belt, handmade, carbon-edged. He traced a cross on the grate, the old sign for no retreat. Eva gave him a single nod. One kick sent the grate clattering across Faircrete. Before the overseers could turn, Ren slipped through the gap like a phantom, blade flashing once, twice, staking out the first alien sensory tendrils. Its shriek of static died under Eva's rifle, but as she smashed its skull-like helm, Idris moved slower, but aimed true, plasma bolt drilling the nearest drone's optic core. Sparks hissed. The last overseer swung a gleaming blade to late. Ren tackled it, slammed it back, and drove his knife through the pulsing core at its neck. Silence. For one heartbeat. There was only the thrum of old cables and the echo of their ragged breathing. Idris staggered to the Dominion relay console. His metal fingers danced across stolen Dominion keys, rerouting data pulses into dead conduits. The whole station flickered. Good, Eva whispered. Voss will see that our people know to push now. Idris didn't look up. In the archive? It'll know to. Ren turned. How can it know anything? It's just old data, right? Idris, one human eye flicked to Eva. He hesitated, then spoke like a priest delivering a dangerous truth. Soul Archive wasn't just storage. It was our final caretaker, and AI seated with every scrap of old Earth. When the bombs fell, it went to sleep, waiting for a signal that never came. If it wakes now, it'll look for us, our voice, our bloodline. Eva felt the weight of his words coil around her ribs. A mind waiting for a family that never called it home. Maybe this was what her mother meant when she spoke of ghosts that never left. Then we give it something real to hear, she said. IDRIS work faster. Rerouting Dominion bypass codes into the old Earth conduit matrix. Sparks arced from the rusted panels as centuries-old failsafes flickered awake. Somewhere deep in the stone, a heartbeat of blue light pulsed faster now, warmer. Eva closed her eyes. She could almost feel the archive's presence brushing her mind, a low murmur of ancient voices. Human voices, billions of souls layered in digital stone. She spoke aloud, not just for Idris or Ren, but for the hidden mind below. Soul Archive, this is Lieutenant Eva Rosalind of Outpost Helix. Human, born of Earth, heir to its ashes. They think you're theirs. They're wrong. Hear us. Remember us. The flickering relay panel glowed blue, Dominion code flickering and dying under older, stronger lines of Earth's language machine dialects no Auric overseer could ever read. Ren gasped. It's answering you. Idris nodded, a flicker of awe breaking through the grime on his face. It remembers. The soul mind is linking, searching for genetic locks, voice keys, family lines. Eva touched her chest, where under her suit, her mother's old DNA tag hung a tiny vial of blood. Passed through 3 generations, hiding in the dark. She unhooked it, pressed it to the reader Idris held out. The panel drank the ancient blood. Somewhere far below, stone conduits hummed alive like a cathedral waking after centuries of silence. A voice, layered and broken by static, whispered through Idris' calm. Rosalind, lineage verified, purpose. Eva's throat tightened. Survive. Fight. Be more than a memory. Help us. The lights in the relay station pulse white-blue, drowning out the Dominion's sickly green code. Idris stepped back, staring as the Soul Archive slipped through the lines like a ghost reclaiming its house. Ren grinned, a raw, fierce thing that made him look older than his 20 years. What now? Lieutenant Eva lifted her rifle, eyes blazing with something that felt suspiciously like hope. Now we make them bleed. We hit their dig teams, fracture their supply lines. Soul Archives awake, it can lock their weapons. Scramble drones. We make this crater hell. Idris laughed, a ragged bark that echoed down the shaft. Humanity's final mind, fighting side by side with the last of its children. Never thought I'd see that day. Eva looked at them both, young, old, broken, stubborn, all that was left of Earth's promise. Gear up. she said, voice iron. If the Dominion wants to meet the ghosts of Earth, she chambered a fresh cell into her battered rifle. Then let's haunt them properly. Far below, the Soul Archives pulse quick and ready to pour centuries of forgotten power into the veins of a dying planet and the rebels who refuse to be erased. And in the dark corridors of Helix, the first spark of humanity's final resistance burned bright enough to challenge the stars. The first assault hit the Dominion's excavation core at dawn. Though dawn in Helix was only a pale flicker on poison clouds, to Ava, it might as well have been sunrise on the old Earth. Her mother used to dream about a sky worth fighting. For Dashi watched the blast through the cracked visor of her helm. As Voss's snipers punctured the lead overseer's armored skull, it toppled like a marionette with its strings cut, its drones swarming aimlessly before Soul Archives pulse hijacked their guidance. They flickered. Wine then turned their pulse lances on their former masters. Idris cackled over the comms as he rerouted the Archive's corrupted Dominion keys. Never thought I'd see the day our ghosts hacking the Empire's precious toys. Ava checked her rifle's charge. Don't celebrate yet. They'll adapt. They always do. She signaled Voss's squad a ragged line of Helix survivors hidden behind shattered barricades and makeshift spike traps, children of a broken world, armed with relic rifles and the last scrap of defiance. Voss's calm voice crackled through the comms. First dig team down. They're falling back to the vault entrance. Ava's eyes narrowed at the distant spires that rose from the crater's heart, the Dominion's drill rigs. Still pushing toward the Soul Archives core. Not far enough. They advanced straight in the rubble, moving from cover to cover under the flickering blue wash of Soul Archives. Hijacked lights. The deeper they pushed, the more they saw the cost. Charred bodies of humans who'd hidden along. Overseers dissecting the ruins for any hint of resistance. They stepped over old bones. Fresher blood. This was humanity's grave, but today, it would become the Dominion's pyre. A sudden hiss like an animal shriek through steel pipes froze Ava mid-stride. Idris ducked behind her, scanning the upper catwalks. Above them, a new shape emerged through the steam, tall, plated in black. Living metal, limbs unfolding like razors. A warden. The Dominion's answer to human persistence, half overseer, half warbest. Bred for slaughter in tight corridors, its islets flared red. It leapt 20 meters down in a blur of alloy. Ava shoved Idris aside just as claws ripped through the floor where he'd stood. Voss's voice broke through the chaos. Lieutenant, pull back. We can't drop that thing with coil guns. Ava rolled, brought her rifle up, and fired point blank. The blast scarred the warden's chest, but didn't stop it. Its claw swiped Ava barely twisted free. Sparks rained. As it shredded a support beam instead, Idris scrambled for cover, eyes wild. Soul Archive, can it shut that thing down? Ava blocked another strike with her rifle's reinforced stock, steel shrieking against the beast's talons. Too much Dominion flesh, not enough machine, she grunted. Her shoulders screamed from the impact. The warden lunged again, unstoppable momentum. Ava braced to meet it head-on. A rain came from the side young, reckless, pure. He dropped. From an overhead duct, slammed a scavenged plasma torch against the warden's side. Heat-seared alloy and synthetic muscle. The beast shrieked, swinging wildly, its claws ripping chunks from the floor and walls. Ava grabbed Ren's collar, hauling him clear as the warden spun, its chest cavity blazing with molten circuits. It staggered, leaking red mist that hissed. Where it hit the cold ferrocrete, Ava didn't hesitate. She pressed her rifle barrel to its exposed core and fired 3 shots straight through. The warden convulsed spasms, rattling its armored limbs, then fell, an iron carcass twitching like a dying insect. Silence rushed in, broken only by Ava's labored breathing. Ren slumped to the ground, helmet cracked, eyes wide with disbelief. Did I? Ava gripped his shoulder tight. You did. She looked at Idris, who was scanning the creature's remains with grim fascination. This was their response. Next time it'll be worse. He nodded, wiping grime from his metal cheek. They'll send purifiers next, burn everything, even if it means losing the archive. Ava exhaled. For the first time, dread threatened. Her resolve. The Dominion's doctrine was simple: if they couldn't own something, they'd erase it from existence. Her comms pinged Voss again, voice ragged. Lieutenant, we've got a problem. Dominion drop craft just pierced upper orbit heavy. Armor signatures. They're not digging anymore. They're coming to finish this. Ava stood over the steaming ruin of the warden, boots planted on scorched alloy like a relic queen defending her last kingdom. How long? she asked. 2 hours, maybe less, Voss answered. Once they're here, we're dust. Ren looked at her, pale and shaking. What do we do, Ava? Ava looked beyond him, into the crater where ancient stone gave way to glimmers of the soul archive's inner glow. A heartbeat in the dark, still waiting, still loyal. She felt her fear twist into something sharper. If they burned the archive, they'd burn Helix, they'd burn Earth's last voice, they'd burn her people, her memories, her mother's promise. She raised her rifle, battered and yet steady as her heartbeat. We don't give them a clean kill, she said. Her voice was iron. We bleed them, we stall them. We hold until Soul Archive gives us what we need to make this a grave they can't bury. Idris stared at her, and if it can't, Ava looked him dead in his one good eye. Then we bury them with us, in the crater's depths. The ancient lights pulsed faster, now responding to human defiance with a warmth that felt almost like love. Somewhere inside the Soul Archive, something vast and patient awoke fully for the first time in centuries. The air above Helix shimmered with ghost light and rising smoke. As the Dominion's drop craft broke atmosphere, Ava watched the sky split apart, 3 black shapes descending through the rotting clouds. Like steel angels of extinction down below, Helix's last defenders braced for the end. In the cracked hallways, scavenged coil rifles were checked and rechecked. Half of them wouldn't fire more than to burst before overheating. But it didn't matter. Nobody planned on walking away. Ava stood at the mouth of the crater, visor up, her breath misting in the dawn chill. Idris hunched beside her, tethered to a makeshift relay. His fingers flicked across rusted keys, trying to pull more from Soul Archive before the Dominion's hammer fell. Behind them, Ren and Voss marshaled the others 40 humans. Maybe 50 if you counted the wounded who refused to hide. They were farmers, mechanics, orphans, no medals, no ranks. Just broken souls who decided to stand rather than kneel. Ava felt every heartbeat like a drum inside her ribs, so much weight on such thin bones. But when she looked at the people behind her, she felt none of that weight alone. She turned to Idris. Tell me something good. He didn't look up. His metal eye flickered in pale blue. It's awake, truly awake now. I've never seen cold like this. It's like an ocean under the desert, endless. Does it have teeth? Ava asked. Half a smile ghosting her lips. IDRIS gave a dry, hacking laugh. If we give it the right key, more than teeth, it remembers our old failsafes, hidden protocols, orbital defense networks, subcrust reactors, maybe even the Soul Spears. Ava's heart jumped at the name. The Soul Spears, the last whispered legend of Earth's final stand. Spaceborne kinetic weapons that could turn entire fleets into drifting slag. Where are they? She asked. IDRIS spread his hands helplessly. We don't know. Soul Archive buried them deep in the net when the Dominion came. Even now, it's searching for dormant satellite signatures. But the archive can't unlock the full grid without something old, something only humans ever carried. He reached into his battered pack and pulled out a small, sealed canister, an ancient cryochip, a family relic passed down from the first generation of exiles. This was my mother's, Idris said softly, voice almost reverent. She said, it was junk and heirloom to remind me we once had stars of our own. But the archive keeps pinging it like it wants to taste what's inside. Ava stepped closer. What's in it? A DNA log. A command chain only old Earth commanders had. If it works, the archive might link to the spares or whatever's left of them. Ren's voice broke through the comms, tense but steady. Lieutenant dropships on final approach. ETA 3 minutes. Armored infantry. Heavy. We're outnumbered 10 to 1. Ava looked at the canister, then at Idris, at Ren's distant shape manning the barricades, at the ragged fighters counting out their last seconds of borrowed life. Plug it in, she said. IDRIS hesitated. If it fails, then we fight with our bones, like always, Ava said. What if it works? He didn't argue. He jammed the cryo chip into the archive uplink note, a battered steel ring, welded into an ancient Earth relay. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the air seemed to shiver with a soft, electric sigh. The old Earth symbol on the relay glowed blue-white, brighter than the sun that never rose here. Idris whispered, come on, old ghost. Remember us. A flicker then. A voice, deeper now, layered and clear. Command lineage verified. Sol grid priming. Orbital asset status. Dormantry activation in progress. Ava closed her eyes, tasting something like Hopra, reckless, so sharp it hurt. Idris' metal eye gleamed with tears. It's waking the spears. Good, Ava said. She turned, raised her rifle. By time, overhead, the Dominion ships hit the ground like falling gods. Shockwaves shuddered through the crater. Black armored overseers spilled out, weapons charged, drones humming with cold purpose. Voss's voice in her ear, "Lieutenant, they're pushing hard on the east flank 40, maybe 50. We can't hold that line without pulling from the core." Ava stared into the smoke, where silhouettes of overseers marched through the haze like nightmare statues. She pressed her calm. "That we don't hold it," she said. "We bleed it." Voss draw them into the kill lanes. Ren primed the blast charges on the upper conduits. "If we can't hold the archive, we bury it under a mountain of their dead." Ren's answer was instant. "Understood, ma'am." She looked at Idris one last time. The old man's face was pale with exhaustion, eyes wide with the old data pulsing through him. "Can you guide the spears?" she asked. He laughed a cracked, beautiful sound in the shadow of the end. "If they're there, they'll know where to strike. They were made for this." Ava gripped his shoulder, then stay alive long enough to aim them. Outside, the first pulse lances sizzled through the barricades. Sparks showered stone and steel. Human voices rose defiant shouts swallowed by the roar of Dominion cannons. Ava stepped forward, rifle raised. Boots planted in the ancient dirt of Earth's last cradle. She didn't pray for victory. She prayed for a wound so deep the stars would remember who opened it. Behind her, the soul archive pulsed brighter than ever in ancient mind, woken by the stubborn ghosts of its lost children. Far above, cold satellites shivered in the void, waiting to be reborn as Earth's final claws. Ava bared her teeth at the oncoming storm. Let them come, and the old Earth heartbeat thumped once more strong enough to shake the sky. The Dominion's second wave poured over the crater like a tide of metal and malice. From her position behind the cracked Ferrocrete barricade, Ava could see them clearly, rows of armored overseers advancing in disciplined silence, drones hovering above them like dark insects, scanning every shadow for human heat signatures. Helix's defenders answered with everything they had. Coil bolts cracked through the dim dawn. Scavenged pulse rifles spat blue fire into the marching wall of armor. For every overseer that fell, two more stepped over it, indifferent to the smoking ruin under their boots. Ava's shoulders slammed back as she fired another pulse into a drone's optic cluster. Sparks rained across the barricade. Beside her, Ren reloaded frantically, his hands slick with grime and blood. Somewhere to their left, Voss barked orders into a battered headset, her squad pulling back through collapsing service tunnels, setting trip mines that delayed the inevitable by mere heartbeats. Behind the line, the Soul Archive's uplink glowed so bright now that even the ash-choked sky reflected its blue pulse. Idris crouched at the base of the uplink tower, fingers darting across the relic console, sweat dripping from his brow despite the cold. Ava ducked under incoming fire and dropped beside him. "Talk to me, Idris." His human eye flicked to her. The other glowed, alive with data. "Spears are priming, Lieutenant. I'm pulling old kill coordinates, aligning them to the Dominion's orbital signatures. Time." She demanded. 10 minutes, Idris rasped. "Maybe less if the archive doesn't." His words died as the barricade behind them exploded inward. Concrete shrapnel sprayed the uplink. Ava's visor cracked from the blast. A line of blood trickling down her temple. Through the smoke stepped another warden bigger than the last. Its armor scorched, but reinforced with black Dominion plating that rippled like liquid metal. Its eyes burned red as dying suns. Ren skidded to her side, firing burst after burst into the beast's chest. The plasma scorched its armor, but did nothing to stop its advance. The warden strode through the fire like it was rain, lifted a claw the size of a man's torso swung. Ava yanked Ren clear just in time, the claw smashing the uplink support column instead. Sparks showered Idris, who curled over the console, shielding the canister locked into its core like it was his own beating heart. Ava rose, rifle braced tight. She fired at the warden's exposed joint, shoulder, hip, neck. The creature roared in static and slammed its claw down again, sending shockwaves through the crater floor. She felt the impact in her teeth. "Ren, flank it." Ava barked out. Ren vaulted over the rubble, coil knife in hand, moving faster than the beast could turn. He buried the blade under his shoulder plating, twisting deep until black coolant sprayed across the crater floor. The warden bellowed a screech of metal and something almost alive. Its claws slashed out wildly, catching Ren's side. The young soldier flew backward, hitting the crater wall with a sickening crunch. Ava's scream tore from her throat, rage drowning out fear. She sprinted forward, ducking under the warden's swipe, leaping onto its armored chest. Her rifle clanged off its plating useless now, so she drew her fallback, a short plasma torch. The same one Ren had used days ago. She jammed it under the beast's throat and triggered the core. Heat and ozone filled the air. The warden convulsed. Clawing at its own neck as molten circuitry hissed from the breach, Ava drove the torch deeper. Teeth gritted against the spray of burning coolant. The monster staggered, crashed backward into the crater floor, its limbs twitching until the red glow of its eyes flickered out. Ava collapsed beside the smoking ruin, chest heaving. She forced herself to her feet, stumbling to Ren's side. He lay broken, but breathing, eyes half open. "Stay with me," she hissed, pressing her palm to his cheek. "Ren, look at me. You hold that line in your head. Do you hear me?" His lips cracked in a faint smile. "Always, Lieutenant." Behind her, Idris shouted. Ava turned. The oopling cracked and scorched, but still pulsing flickered with new life. Idris raised his trembling hands, voice raw with disbelief. "There. Awake, Ava. The spear's there. Old Earth teeth, just waiting for a target." He tapped the console, code flickering around his metal eye. One command, and they dropped kinetic hell on the Dominion's fleet. Ava looked up, past the burning crater rim, through the sick sky to the stars beyond. She saw it in her mind ghostly. Weapons drifting silent for centuries, woken now by the stubborn heartbeat of her people. Humanity's last promise. The ground quaked as the Dominion's heavy infantry pressed closer, hundreds of armored silhouettes. Advancing through the haze, Ava rose, gripping her cracked rifle with one hand, Ren's cold fingers with the other. She spoke to Idris, but her words were for every ghost watching from the dark. "Do it." Idris locked eyes with her, a single tear sliding down the lines of his metal cheek. Then he jammed the command key deep into the oopling core. The pulse shifted from blue to a searing white, so bright it painted the crater walls with false dawn. Overhead, the stars themselves seemed to shudder. Ava closed her eyes and whispered to the ruined sky, "Let them remember this. There was no turning back." At first, there was only silence, that crushing, final hush that falls over a battlefield when both sides know the next heartbeat will decide whose history survives. Ava felt it in her bones as she stood at the edge of the crater, rifle trembling. In her grasp, behind her, Ren lay propped against shattered stone, his eyes half shut but fixed on the sky. Idris knelt at the oopling space, the glow of the Soul Archive spilling over him. Like the sun Helix hadn't seen in centuries, the Dominion's army pressed closer, overseers in tight ranks, black armored silhouettes gleaming under the dead sky. Drones hummed overhead, weaving a net of steel and static. Their commanders thought this was already won. One final push, one final purge. Ava glanced back at her people. Voss, bleeding from a gash above her eye, but still shouting orders. The last defenders crouched in ruined alleys, coiled guns braced against their shoulders. Joss said in that grim, human way that says we do not yield. She lifted her visor and spoke, her voice carrying over the hush. "Idris." His voice cracked through the rising wind. "They're aligned. The spears are awake, waiting for the final mark." Ava's throat tightened. She had always thought her mother was wrong when she spoke of Earth's ghosts watching from the stars. But now, with ancient weapons orbiting overhead, she almost felt them. Billions of silent witnesses pressing close, listening for one last command. She pressed her palm to the oopling's final node. Its cold metal burned against her skin. "Soul Archive," she said, clear and certain. "Target all Dominion signatures above Helix. Unlock the spears. Let them fall." There was a hum, a note that thrummed through the crater floor, rattling every broken wall and fractured beam. Idris looked up, awe and terror warring in his single human eye. "Command confirmed." The Archive's layered voice answered, deeper now, like a chorus of all the ancestors Helix had forgotten. "Soul spears, released." Far above, hidden, in the poisoned sky, something ancient moved. The first streak of light broke through the clouds. A thin white blade tearing down from orbit, then another, and another. In the next breath, the sky filled with falling stars. Kinetic rods screaming down at impossible speed, weapons forged in the last days of old Earth. Aimed now by the stubborn pulse of its children, Ava saw the overseers freeze, those cold, perfect faces lifting to watch the doom they had never imagined. Some ran, some fired upward, pulse lances useless against physics and gravity's wrath. The first spear struck beyond the crater rim, a flash of white. That swallowed sound itself. The shockwave slammed through the ruins. flinging drones like insects in a hurricane. The second impact followed. Closer this time, a thunder crack that sent a Dominion crawler cartwheeling end over end. Ava braced herself against the oopling tower as the ground shuddered. Hot wind whipping around her, she forced her eyes open, refusing to look away from the falling rain of vengeance. Ren laughed, a ragged, broken laugh that rose above the thunder. "Look at them run," he gasped, voice cracking with blood and wonder. In the chaos, Voss's voice cut through the calms. "Lieutenant, the Dominion's dropping comm channels. They're pulling back. They're breaking." Ava saw it, the once unstoppable overseer lines fracturing under the rain of spears. Commanders barked orders that dissolved into static as the archive hijacked their signals. Drones fell from the sky, their neural cores melted by code older than the Empire itself. She looked at Idris. The old scavenger's shoulders shook as he clutched the Oopling's base, his breathing ragged. "This is what they feared," he rasped. "Not our ships, not our numbers. This, the memory that wouldn't die." A new spear thundered down inside the crater's far edge, the heat searing Ava's skin even from 100 meters away. The Dominion's last tank shattered under its impact, steel crumpled like paper under a god's fist. Ava dropped to one knee beside Ren, shielding his broken body with her own. "Stay with me, kid," she whispered. He caught the thin line of blood, eyes locked on the burning sky. "I see it, Ava. I see what they took from us. They can't take this." He tried to smile, that same reckless spark that had once driven him to dive onto a warden's back with nothing but a knife. "You hold this line now for all of us." His eyes slipped closed. Ava pressed her forehead to his, holding him there as the ground shook again with humanity's final roar. Overhead, the last spear fell, a white comet tearing through the clouds, slamming into the Dominion's orbiting command ship. The sky split open as the vessel cracked apart, burning debris streaking the poisoned dawn. Silence followed, the heavy, impossible silence that comes when the impossible becomes real. Ava lifted her head, staring at the smoldering ruin where the overseers had once stood invincible. Voss stumbled over, helmet gone, hair matted with blood and dust. She looked at Ava, then the sky, then back again, and she laughed, short and fierce. Through tears she didn't bother to wipe away. Ava rose, still cradling Ren's cold hand. She faced the stunned survivors who gathered behind her, a handful of souls, alive in the crater that should have been their grave. She didn't shout a victory cry. She didn't need to. The sky had done it for her. Earth remembers. And so would the stars. When the last echo of the spear's fall faded into the poisoned sky, Helix fell into a silence so deep Ava thought she might hear Earth itself breathing beneath her. Stone smoke coiled from the craters where the Dominion's war machines once stood, heat shimmering off melted alloy and scorched rock. She stood at the rim of the archive's oopling, rifle hanging limp at her side. Her breath fogged the air in short, ragged bursts round her. The last of Helix's defenders emerged from broken tunnels and barricades, blinking against the pale dawn, seeping through cracks in the storm above. They moved like ghosts at first, cautious, disbelieving. No overseer voices barked orders. No drones drifted overhead to hunt their warmth. The Dominion's calm static was gone, replaced by a hush broken only by the hiss of cooling metal and the whisper of the archives. Heartbeat humming through the stone below. Ava dropped to one knee beside Ren's body. She brushed the grit from his brow, tucking a stray lock of hair behind his ear like a mother would for a sleeping child. He had held the line until the end, until the sky itself remembered what humanity had been born to do. She kissed his forehead once, left her cracked rifle beside him like a grave marker, then rose. When she turned, the eyes of every survivor, Voss, Idris, the young ones who still clutched coil rifles too big for their shoulders, were fixed on her. Voss stepped forward, her voice hoarse from smoke and shouting, "Lieutenant, the sky's clear. The Dominion's fleet. The archive says they're pulling back, limping into deep orbit. They don't know what hit them." Ava's lips twitched into something that might have been a smile if it weren't. "So bone-tired. They'll know. They'll carry this story home with them. How they came to bury us and found their own grave instead." Idris limped forward, clutching a salvage kit like a relic. His metal eye flickered with the archive's soft glow. "Soul Archive is stabilizing. It's not just awake, Ava. It's alive. It wants to speak, to remember." Ava raised an eyebrow. "Remember what?" Idris gestured at the smoldering crater, at the bodies buried under it. At the burned sky slowly bleeding pale light on a broken stone us, all of this. The stand we made, it's been searching for a new command chain, a family to belong to. You gave it one. A spark of warmth flickered in Ava's chest. Small, fragile, dangerous. So, what is it now? A weapon? Idris shook his head, a ghost of wonder in his tired laugh. No, a witness, a seed. If the Dominion comes back, and they will, Soul Archive will light the sky again. But more than that, it will remember who we were when they thought we were already dust. She turned, gazing into the crater where the Archive's ooblink pulsed like a buried star. Once, it had been just stone and code, an echo of a lost Earth. Now it was something more, a promise that even the Dominion couldn't erase. Voss stepped beside her, shoulder brushing hers. What do we do now, Ava? The question lingered in the cold air. They had no fleet, no planet worth a name, barely enough rations for a month. But they had this crater, the Soul Archive's pulse, and the Dominion's fear burning a hole. In their perfect empire, Ava looked at the sky where the spears had fallen, somewhere up there. Ancient kinetic rods drifted cold once more, waiting for another command if ever they were needed. She looked at Voss, at Idris, at the orphans and engineers and farmhands clutching battered rifles. Humanity's last generation, stubborn, half-starved, half-mad enough to spit in a god's face. What we've always done, she said. Her voice was raw but steady. We rebuild. We bury our dead. And then we remind the stars who we are. She stepped forward until she could rest her hand on the ooblink's core. The Soul Archive's voice vibrated through her bones, a soft whisper layered with echoes of every human who'd ever dreamed of tomorrow. She closed her eyes and breathed that memory in, letting it root itself in her ribs, in her blood, in the marrow that refused to yield even when the sky fell. Behind her, Voss began barking orders. Salvage the wounded tech. Drag the dead into the old tunnels where the Archive's warmth still lingered. Idris knelt by a busted relay, murmuring to the ghost network like an old monk whispering prayers to a stone god. Ava opened her eyes one last time to the crater where Ren lay beneath her rifle. His face looked peaceful, almost boyish, as if, in the next heartbeat, he might rise and ask what they'd do next. She let herself believe that, for just a moment, that maybe some part of him lingered in the Archive's pulse. A spark waiting for another dark hour when the sky needed fire. Again she turned to the survivors gathering behind her, their eyes lifting to the pale break in the clouds, that small promise of sun, or at least the memory of it. Today, Ava said, her voice carrying clear and true over the ruins of Helix. We bury the Empire's certainty in our grave, but we are not buried with it. She felt the warmth at her back, the Archives glow stronger than ever. Now, she said, quiet but unyielding. The stars carry our name, and far above the crater, where the Dominion's fleet fled like shadows before dawn, the ancient, cold spears drifted, silent, waiting. Proof that even the forgotten can strike like gods when the time comes. Earth had been broken, but it had never been beaten. Not while any voice still spoke its name, not while any heart still burned for. The sky dotted out while the Archive remembered and whispered the story back to the stars. Now, the stars carry our name.